Hello everyone to the Tank Showcase series. In this episode, we will be looking in more detail at the IS-6, the Russian Tier 8 premium heavy tank. We will learn a bit about this tank, scratching the surface of the history of this enigma, and uncovering the fate of this intriguing looking weapon of war. The IS-6 Soviet heavy tank, otherwise known as the Joseph Stalin Tank 6 or JS-6, started life known as the Object 252. Oh, and also the Object 253. If you're keeping up, then yes, that's 4 names for this tank. Well, actually, it was 2 separate tanks, and this is where the story gets a little more interesting. Original sketches were drawn up at the Chelyabinsk-Kirov factory. Excuse me if I got that wrong. From the beginning of December 1943 to the summer of 1944. The original brief was to construct a tank with the combat compartment and electrical transmission in the rear, as was found successfully on the German Ferdinand. The new tanks were developed at around the same time as the Object 701, which would become the IS-4, and the Object 703, which would become the IS-3. Now, the sources I found are confusing and sometimes contradictory, but it seems as though the Object 253 featured the electric transmission on the IS-2 suspension system. In this tank, the engine powered a generator, which in turn powered electric motors which were connected to the drive wheels. The system was supposed to simplify the tank's operation and increase its maneuverability. However, it required a lot of copper, which, at the time of the war, was in short supply. The Object 253 was found to be significantly overweight, and its electrical transmission also proved to be quite unreliable. Meanwhile, also as a result of the electric transmission failures, the Object 252 was being developed on the same hull, but this used a mechanical transmission and suspension similar to that what would be used on the IS-3. However, on the 252, it used larger road wheels and no return supports. You can see from the in-game model that the IS-6 you can play appears to be the Object 252 variant. It is important to remember that the IS-6 was developed at around the same time as the tanks which would become the IS-3 and the IS-4. Trials found that the IS-6 did not surpass those tanks, with the IS-4 providing better armoured defence, better manoeuvrability and better firepower. As a result of this, the Object 252, also known as the IS-6 or JS-6, was never put into production. Armour-wise, the upper glacis sheet was 100mm thick and set at a 65-degree angle. The lower glacis was 120mm thick, but only at around 50 degrees. The cheeks were also 100mm thick, benefited from 62-degree angle from the vertical and also rotated 40 degrees. Side armour was also 100mm thick and also angled. Now, sheet thickness doesn't really sound all that impressive, and yes, whilst inferior to the IS-4, the correct way to assess the armour of the IS-6 should always be using the relative armour thicknesses, or rats. The upper plate equates to about 237 rats, with the cheeks giving a massive 311 rats when shot at from the front. The turret is a bit of a mixed bag, ranging from 173 to 355 rats. Watch out for some weak points. In fact, I'm highlighting some areas to look out for. These are quite exposed, but you can defend these by keeping on the move. This helps to prevent enemies getting a good clear shot at them. The side armour is also well angled, and all in all the sides are mostly made up of tracks and a similar, though not quite effective, bullshitium as the IS-3's. Things only get marginally worse to the rear. The butt cheeks still offer 157 rats, whilst the upper plate angles to have around 128 rats. The smaller lower rear plate provides the fewest rats, and so this is the most easily penetrated spot. There are surprisingly few weak spots on the rear of the IS-6, but again, you want to look out for that small lower rear plate. Of course, the benefit of having more rats than armour was that you can keep weight down, and so improve mobility and manoeuvrability. Historically, the IS-6 had a top speed of approximately 35 km an hour, which is pretty impressive for a heavy tank. Although, as we found out earlier, this was no greater than the IS-3 or the IS-4. Both the Object 252 and 253 mounted the Soviet 122mm D30 cannon. This featured a venting system that cooled the barrel with pressured air after shooting, and this allowed for an increased rate of fire. So, with all that out of the way, let's see how this has been translated into the game. Here we are on Himmelsdorf. I'm a top tier heavy tank, which means we have to be quite aggressive. We're pushing down the Banana Road along with this IS, who did have a pretty significant hard-on for me at the very beginning of the battle, and we're now coming up against, well, the brunt of the enemy force. We're going to push out, take a quick shot and move back if this IS will let me. I take a hit, but it bounces. First bounce. This guy's on very low health. I'm pretty well defended from those other three tanks further along the road. Not like this IS who's decided to rush out in the middle. Don't quite have a shot, and I don't want to expose myself. Yes, I've got good armour, but it's not going to be good if well, everyone shoots at you. You can only take so much punishment. Bounce another shot there from the Jagdpanzer. And another one. Here comes KV. Track him, keep him in place. Let's see if our KV3 can do anything. Now we're making the enemies turn to face. This guy's right in the open. He tracks back up, but we can get a shot on his lower glacis. I've got more support coming up. Now throughout the battle, do feel free to count how many bounces there are. I haven't bothered doing this at this point in time, but also be aware of how the tank is being positioned, so then like that, not exposing too much of my tank. You do have to still manage the enemy incoming fire. Take a hit from the Panther. That guy's going to be a bit of a threat. He's got a very accurate gun, and he'll be able to pick out my weak spots. So I use the wreck in front of me, which will soak up a lot of their damage. Meanwhile, the gun, whilst not, you know, the most accurate in the world, it does benefit from what I like to call Russian accuracy. So we're getting some good fire out, and we're still bouncing shots. Now, the fact that your armour is so sloped and you can bounce lots of shots means that you can afford to sit still for longer to allow your aiming circle to close right up. Yeah, that's an example of Russian accuracy. I don't know where that shot went. No one knows where that shot went. The guys along the side roads have started pulling back a little bit. So let's deal with the threat down towards the enemy base. There's another tank who's left himself out in the open. Got killed. Now these guys are starting to grow a pair, but they really probably shouldn't, because the IS-6 is reloads a lot faster than a lot of people give credit for. Now I'm going to use the side scraping angle against the front, but then a wild Panther appears, trying to take advantage of getting behind me while I wasn't paying attention, but I was paying attention, and there's a shot in his lower glacis. I'm going to keep moving, keep mobile. They're coming at me one at a time. He gets another penetrating shot. Again, the German guns are very good at picking out the weak spots, so you do have to be wary when you're fighting them. I bounced a shot for him, I believe, but he bounced another shot. He must be getting quite frustrated. Back to a slight side scrape if I can. Again, I don't want to just career around, because ultimately he'll just be able to pick out my weak spots. So I'm going to use the advantage of my sloped armour, and I'm bouncing yet more shots. By this point, well, there's only one tank left, and he's cowering the corner, so we're going to push forwards. I've got the health to spare, and we take him out. Textbook stuff. That was well, quite a solid game. Now this game, which was pretty much immediately after, I'm still, again, top tier, and that's one thing to bear in mind. In the IS-6 you do get preferential matchmaking, which means you will more often than not be towards the top of your team. This can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. Here, we have, I think it's about a 30% win chance. And look at the player spread. No one is going to cover the beach here on Stalingrad. So let's see if we can make this one work. Now, I'm not too concerned. Well, okay, I'm pretty concerned that no one's covering the beach, but for that reason, I'm not going to push forwards. There are medium tanks pushing up and calling for help, and that is the right thing to do. But to be honest, at this point, they can see that they're not getting any support, and they should really consider falling back. For me, they're going to be there serving as spotters. I mentioned to them in the chat that they really need to pull back. Don't advance, but they are now left themselves quite isolated. Ah, enemy ALC spotted. Where is he? He's coming. He doesn't know we're here. Hello! And goodbye. Thanks for coming. Next. We have targets lighting up along the beach. And we should outnumber the guys, the heavy tanks that are along the 2-3 line. So I'm going to relocate and help to cover the push. This is the first shot. We're going to pull back to a position I can defend. Like I said, the IS-6 has, as we saw in the last game, got good armor, lots of bounces, but you don't want to be left in a position where you can be outflanked or attacked by multiple enemies, which will make it much more difficult for you to angle your armor correctly. And I think that's what it's really all about in the IS-6. Yes, you've got good armor, and you can quite successfully sit out in the open and bounce shots, but to make the most out of your tank, you want to be able to angle your armor against opponents. We've gone around, again taken that guy by surprise with the speed of the IS-6, and his move is actually just to push away. He knows that it's bad news to get an IS-6 behind him, so he's moving forwards to the IS. His IS is KV-85. Oh, and the tracks eat at an ISU-152 shot. That was so lucky. So I'm going to pull back. Their push along the beach has passed this position, so now I'm relative safety. Something could jump up and bite me in the arse, so I'm going to keep moving because I don't want to get caught in a weak spot. It's a Type 59, and the shot sets him on fire. Russian accuracy. We're going to pull back. The Type 59 obviously has very good frontal and turret armor. I bounce off him and he bounces off of me. Again, I'm going to keep moving, but I need to shift from that position because I've spotted on the minimap there are tanks coming up behind me now. I bounce a shot off to the rear from the KV-85 and put a massive one into the Cromwell, who is one of their better players. And so is this chap, the guy in E25. He penetrates me. His gun is incredibly accurate. He'll be able to pinpoint any of my weak spots. I get tracked twice, and I'm reloading. I'm still bouncing shots from the E25 though, because I've managed to angle the armor just enough. But between him and the Cromwell, I'm in a bit of trouble now. Taking hits now from the Cromwell. So you see I bounce from the Cromwell, or I bounce from the E25, but not both at the same time. I also am now, well, pretty surrounded. I'm on my own. I have called for help, and I can see that my heavy tanks are pulling back towards me, so I just need to hold on long enough. Bounce from the E25, but not the Cromwell. He is firing gold, and to be honest, against the IS-6, that is the correct move to do. He shifted position. Can I get a shot out here? Needs to get spots. There is a Jagdpanzer behind me now. And I'm going to try and deal with this guy because he's a one-shot. Take him out and switch position again because I'm taking too much fire from that Cromwell. Let's see if I can get some cover from here. We've got the KV-2 on the other side. He's probably not going to be much help on that side, but I do have some tanks behind me now. He thought I was going to move away, but I've come back. And now it's just a bit of a waiting game. I'm going to wait for support from the rest of my team, and then we can push forwards. So, I think that's about it. I hope that you guys have picked up some useful information, some not useful information, and have enjoyed learning a little bit more about the IS-6. Let me know what you guys thought. Leave a comment if you have a preference of what you might like to learn more about next time. And if you enjoyed this, then do please like and subscribe.
Target acquired. Let's find another target. Penetration.
This has been fun. Until next time, you've been oinked.